Okay. Hello, hello. Oh, wow. Okay, this is working. Very good. Hi. Hi, everyone. I haven't done a YouTube live before, so I'm just testing to make sure that it's all working, that you can see me. If anyone's online, if you could perhaps pop in the chat and just say hi, maybe where you're from. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm going to test it on my phone here to see if it's working, because that would be embarrassing if I talk for a bit and then nothing's happening. Let's see. So just says that I'm live. Yeah, if you could just pop in the chat and maybe say hi, like I said, where you're from, and let me know that you can hear me okay, that you can see me. Sure, I'm not. That would be really helpful. Okay. Hi, Melissa from Ecuador. Thank you. I'm going to assume that means that you can hear me, which is great. Thank you, because it's not coming up on my other one. Just give me 1 second. Sorry. I have to learn. The only way you learn how to do these things is by doing it right. Hi from Australia. Is that Tew? I'm probably saying that incorrectly. My apologies. All good. Fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, excellent. I don't need to worry about testing that then. You can hear me. Fabulous. Well, such a pleasure to have you join me. Of course, this will be available as a recording as well, for those people who weren't able to attend. And yeah, it's just great to be actually in the space where I'm able to share content again. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to this because so first of all, sorry, my name's Charlie Giles, as you probably know, otherwise you wouldn't be on here. My YouTube channel is Sacred Wound Medicine. And I guess to try and explain a little bit about what I do is I'm not really good with titles because what I do changes and morphs depending on who I'm working with. But I do work with some shamanic practitioners, as in working with shamanic practices. And what that means is that I am able to help people connect with spirit guides, or I'm able to help people also understand what the energy, what the unseen part of ourselves is that's being blocked or that's not working well, needs to be shifted, and work out the next best steps for that person, whether it be medicines, or whether it be things like helping you change the programming of your subconscious mind to kind of help you get past old patterns and things like that. I've been coaching and doing counseling for over 25 years, working with a range of people, from professional, corporate, professional athletes, and now more so with the change that I've gone through my spiritual practice, to now work with people on that kind of level of things. But for me, it's just meeting people where they're at and working out what's the next best steps. And I don't think there's a set way of doing that. We're all unique in our ways of how we've been raised, and different things like that, and where we're at this point in time. So it's hard to kind of put a template onto what people need to do for healing. So anyway, what I'm going to try and do is get through the things that have really bubbled up for me. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'd be happy to try and do my best at answering those things, or at least guiding you in the right direction. I certainly don't believe that I know everything there is to know about healing. Absolutely not. I don't think anyone would. But I definitely have had my own experience teach me a lot about not only myself on a really deep level of what I needed to release to be able to continue as a human, but also what I've learned from other people that I've worked with over the years. So that's what I really want to share Um, yeah, I think the best place to start is the idea of this term healing. And I think as the world is definitely changing, I mean, we're all feeling it. We're all um, probably feeling a need to move past something about ourselves, to raise something up and bubble something to the surface energetically that we need to look at, that we need to release. It's kind of what the whole world is going through. It's like the whole consciousness is trying to, bring up all the stuff that we've been ignoring and hopefully have it all bubble to the surface so that we can just, transmute it and live differently. But on an individual scale, that means that we're also doing that individually as our own consciousness, because we're all connected, right? So I feel like that's why there's this really strong pull for everyone to be looking at their stuff. I mean, the term healing for me is very broad and it has so many different meanings for so many different people. And I just wanted to point that out because I think, especially for different generations, like some of the Generation X kind of people in that age bracket or older, um, we weren't raised with the idea of healing. Healing was if you get sick, you go and get better, right? So the idea of healing is actually more in our head that, oh, well, if I'm okay and if I'm managing my life and if everything is working out for me the way I think it's meant to be, even if I'm kind of, really still stressed about it, or I'm medicating about it, or I'm just holding myself together, then I don't need healing. And I want to say that I kind of turn that word healing more into the concept of just literally working on yourself, taking responsibility of what you might need to do differently. And that's, both spiritually, mentally, and physically, to be able to work on yourself piece by piece, layer by layer, for as long as you need to, so that the responsibility is actually yours. You're actually not, um, I guess, taking the frame of mind that, psychologically there's something wrong with me. I have to have something wrong with me to be able to need to heal, if that makes sense. Because that's sometimes where we get stuck. And I know from my own perspective that that's how I felt. I was, holding it all together. I was running a business. Externally, everything looked exactly as most people would look, in a marriage, running a business. We had lots of friends. Everything looked pretty normal as far as whatever normal is meant to look like for society standards. Had a mortgage, had credit cards, the whole bit. And really what I was doing was managing, or possibly not very well, but managing those parts of me that were really like my engine light going off. I was just managing that. And that can be different for everyone. Like it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be overthinking, it could be controlling, it could be all these kind of different behaviors that help. Well, not that, everything is a behavior, but all these different ways of the engine light going off, that I like to say, that we kind of feel like we need to control and bury and manage, but they're in fact managing us. So I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent there. I'll come back to that, but I just wanted to say that that's where I was. My thing was that I would control everything. Like, is it, as long as everything was, in my grips of being able to see what was going to happen and organize it really well and keeping myself busy, then everything would be okay. The problem with that, and I, for absolutely no reason, was seeking out to, go for healing. That wasn't on my schedule of list of things to do. But the telltale signs were all there. So, I drank, not always a lot, but, would drink at the end of the day, a couple of glasses of wine to help me just kind of chill out, watch television, and that was the end of that. But I would also have these moments where I wasn't able to really control something that would trigger me. So for me, it would be that, something quite small would become outrageous and I wouldn't be able to manage that. Um, and also, it would be that I would probably hurt people with the things that I said in a way to make me feel like, I was okay. And never really noticing those kinds of things until you get to the place where you then see that that's a version of you that you don't want to be, that you don't like. And I would start to have, many regrets about things that I'd said or the way that I treated people. And sometimes whether it was, when I was drinking or not. So that wasn't this person that said, "Oh, I need to go and seek healing." I mean, that's not how it happened, and that's not generally how it happens. And I guess that's why I wanted to talk about it because, you know, where I feel like I'm at right now is because I've gone through so much of this and it was really challenging and there was no roadmap and I just had to kind of bumble my way along. I want to really now be an advocate for healing or for doing work on yourself because I believe in the world that we're in today, there's so many people whose engine light is going off, right? There's something energetically that isn't lining up with the version of you who you're meant to be. And that's how I believe the engine light is really trying to tell you that if you have a version of anxiety or depression, or maybe it's overthinking, maybe it's overwhelm, I think that's probably the one I resonate the most with. I've been around a lot of people with anxiety, so I recognize that, and I've worked with that a lot, particularly in my family. But for me, overwhelm is something that stops me dead in my tracks. It's like, which I guess can be another form of anxiety, but it doesn't give me that same anxiety-driven feeling. It doesn't escalate. It's just a feeling of I can't do anything, and there's no. It's the weirdest thing. There's no particular reason why I can't do anything except that I can't do anything. And I've learnt that to be my version of my engine light kind of going, okay, something's really out of alignment here. And I'm asking you to just kind of, let what I'm saying become curious about it. I'm certainly not suggesting that this is the be all and end all and, everything I say is correct. But this is how what I have learned about energy over the last 8 years that I've been in deep healing. I am deeply working on myself in these different layers and working with other people to see their different ways of how they unravel each layer of what they need, and by listening to that engine light that's coming on for them. So let me try and, I guess, say this a different way as well, because, like I said, I feel like there is a lot of people who are really struggling with managing their anxieties or their depression or their overwhelm or their avoidance or their just inability to be in the world um, as an amazing soul-filled empowered human being, which is what we all completely are. And this is the reason why I think reframing it can really help people to take those first steps or the next steps. So I realize that everyone is at a different place, um, because we get a little bit lost with you know, the idea that reaching out to something that will quickly help us get through the day is a form of really just managing or sticking a bit of tape over the engine light. And I'm not judging that by any means, so don't hear that. I know that we all need to find our own ways of getting through the day. Sometimes getting through one day is like the biggest achievement of all. So I'm not suggesting that that's a judgment. What I'm asking you to think about is what what part of this can you take in a different psychology for healing or for working on yourself, to say, what if I look at this engine light that I'm going to keep referring back to, so my anxieties or my depression or this deep feeling of some kind of energetic frequency that you're just off, you can't get through the day, you can't overcome it. um, what if I look at that as my body trying to tell me, my spirit trying to tell me, and my energy trying to tell me that my frequency is off. There's a part of me that hasn't evolved, it hasn't grown with who I am becoming. So, you going through your entire life are now, we're evolving all the time, we're growing all the time. You know, our life is calling on us, our soul is calling us on us to do different things and to serve in different ways. But if our frequency, if our patterns and our subconscious programming, the way we were raised, the way society has raised us, our different cultures, the way the world says we need to be, if that programming is left, that it doesn't grow with you, then you're out of alignment with who you're meant to be. And that's what I have really realized in working with many people on this, and also myself, is that it's about your belief system not lining up. There's this smaller part of you, and sometimes, very often, it's your inner child. I know mine was. But it could be just, you know, if you don't resonate with the inner child idea, it's also programming, society programming. And it's that, it's the concept that, you know, what you tell yourself, it's the subconscious stuff. You don't know you're telling yourself this stuff, that it's trying to keep you safe because at some point you were told you can't do that, you can't speak up, you can't be that version of yourself. You're too loud, you're too something. And, you know, the world can't handle that. You can't be that. It's too scary. And so you have conditioned yourself to stay quiet or stay small or stay something to appease other people. And this is usually what triggers this kind of anxiety energy, or even a depression energy, because what you're doing is you're reviewing, you're reviewing where you want to go and what you want to be based on old patterns that are saying you can't do that. It's too scary to do that, and we're trying to keep you safe. Now, the thing about this is it's not always so. Something I mentioned in my email that I wanted to kind of look at separately was the physical, the spiritual, and the mental are three components that all need to be looked at, but worked on together. Very often, especially through, you know, our society as it is, everything is a very different concept. We look at physical, we look at spiritual, and we look at mental in all different realms. We go to all of those things separately. And what I've realized is that, of course, we are one, we are whole, we are everything, and everything listens to each other, everything works with each other. And the idea that if we start to look at ourselves as this whole being, which I know isn't a new concept, but the problem is we're taught not to. So we have to keep bringing it into the conscious mind to say, hang on, how am I talking to myself? How am I viewing myself? Is my spiritual practice, you know, in line and coming up with my physical practice or my mental practice? And what I mean by mental practice is, you know, we all have a brain that goes off on its own chitter chatter with itself and still likes to run the show. I mean, you know, the brain loves to run the show. So that meditation or that practice that works for you, and if you haven't found one yet, then there's your first place to start. What it is that can really help you to take over the driver's seat of the brain. And, you know, that could be a lifelong practice, but it's definitely the place to start, because the brain is the place where it's just running on all this old patterns, all the old stuff. It's not, you know, it's kind of waiting for you to jump in and take the driver's seat and to give it some space and some breathing room, because this is where the spiritual practice is then able to work in together for you. So, and the reason why I say that is because the spiritual practice, as part of your healing, as part of your working on yourself, is that you have this incredible connection to either your higher self or your God or the universe or the cosmos or the consciousness, whatever is the word for you that you feel is that higher power. And it may just be, if you haven't connected with the higher power yet, it may just be that it's the highest version of yourself, the peace that you can bring yourself by not having to, be overthinking everything, the peace that you can bring yourself by simply being, but by being in the driver's seat of your mind. Because I know for a lot of people, it's incredibly exhausting being up there in your head, overanalyzing, thinking a million things, worrying about so much, and not really having belief in yourself, which is what all of that is. So even if it's that first step of bringing these things together by saying, okay, I need to look at all these pieces that fit together. My mind is just as important to keep, working like as if I was going to the gym, working on that, having a practice that's going to help my mind, having a spiritual connection practice that's going to help with, my purpose, my energy, and my peace. And then, of course, my physical practice. So this physical body that we have to get around here in. So my own personal space in this, the physical, has been the most difficult for me. I have never really had a problem connecting spiritually. I'm assuming in my soul contract that was always a part of who I was. And I'm very connected to my spirit team. And, and that's one of the things I love doing, is helping people to connect with their spirit team, because quite often it's a bit daunting to know that you have this spirit team with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even though they don't think in time, but that they're there to help you and guide you. But very often there's that wall or that block of physical strength, I guess, maybe. No, that's probably not the right way of putting it. Physical. So what I'll explain is, the best way to explain it is what I've just experienced. So my eating patterns and the way of my health were all over the place. I mean, I'm a Taurian, so, I love food. And learning how, and even though I studied health coaching and nutrition, all that kind of stuff, sometimes it's the worst thing. You don't know what you're, you know what you're supposed to be doing, but you don't want to do it, right? So yes, I'm very human. And there was lots of things that I was being told through my spirit team and through my practice that I really needed to give up or eat less of, right? So if you know some of my stories, or you've listened to some of my videos already, you know that I basically purged alcohol from my life a couple of years ago now. And it was a very big spiritual experience. But the video of that story is actually on my channel. And I was very grateful to that, because I didn't have to go through any process of detox. It was an immediate thing, and I don't count the days, and I don't have any inkling to drink it at all, which is fantastic. But it wasn't the only thing that I then had to give up. So this practice of walking in this kind of spiritual career does mean that you need to continuously work on yourself, and you need to, watch what you eat. Because what I learned was that it's not about losing weight or being a certain, whether you're heavy or not. It's actually not about that. It's actually about the fact that what you eat changes the frequency of your spiritual body and your energy. So you have to think of it like a plumbing system. So we are a plumbing system. Say we're just a straight pipe with a few bends. So, we connect to the spiritual source, we connect to the consciousness, we connect to our higher selves or God. And then through that plumbing system, the things that we eat, the certain, whether it's toxicity in food, whether it's, what's happened to the food beforehand, whether it's the kind of things, for me, it's dairy. I can't eat any dairy. Sugar, obviously, but, that's a no-brainer. certain things will just completely change my ability to tune in spiritually and to, be able to speak to my team. And energetically, it slows me down. So I think what happens is because we're trained into the idea that our physical body just should or shouldn't eat certain things because of weight and, diseases and chronic things like that, we miss the point that if we actually look at everything together, how we actually would go through life if we're looking at what we eat based on our energetic frequency, as well as how well our body runs, because every single cell in our body is listening to us. So if we're eating something and going, oh my goodness, I shouldn't eat this, this is going to be so bad for me, it's going to make me feel awful, then chances are you're going to be pretty right, because every cell is listening to you. And then every part of your body is also saying, why why are we in this relationship when, you really don't treat me with love and respect, even though we're in this together. I hope this is making sense. I'm kind of on a roll here, and it's kind of just how I do these things. But I guess the biggest message, and truly because this has really made more sense to me more recently than ever, is looking at ourselves as this whole package. So when it comes to working on ourselves, we don't get caught up in this idea of working on our trauma. So that kind of takes me to that next part where trauma comes up a lot in this space, because because there's so much about bringing up our stuff that I think we get caught on the idea that healing means we basically have to just, unless we have a trauma, that everyone's idea of trauma is different, right? That something physically has happened to us that's really awful, that we need to go back in and make peace with that. Or we have to go back in and forgive people that have done horrible things, or we have to go back in and relive it in some way. And I don't really look at things like that. I think that's unhelpful, as a way of making more blocks for us to step into our work. And also because there's a part of us that says, well, and I know I used to, I had plenty of things, horrible things happen to me, that I would just be like, oh, I'm fine. I don't let that bother me anymore. I don't care. It's just nothing. It doesn't affect me anymore. But the truth was that the energy of those things were still being carried by my body, by my soul, by my spirit. They were still a part of me. So as much as if I just removed that or just told myself I was okay with it, would help me to continue on my day, and nothing really seemed to affect me, the problem was that energy would become like a blockage, or it was a blockage that I was completely unaware of. That was a blockage, back to that plumbing scenario, right? So all of these things meant that I wasn't able to really hear the guidance that was there for me the whole time. And guidance, is everything like intuition. Whether you believe that there are spirit guides with you or not all the time, it doesn't mean they're not. So they're going to be there. That's the deal. That's the contract they made. It's like, here's the team. You're going to go down and you're going to be a human in this life, and then we're going to help you through it. And you're going to get stuck with all this stuff, and you won't remember us, and you won't maybe even hear us, but that's okay. We're still going to do our job. And even though it's going to be harder for us if you don't hear us, we'll still find ways of, helping you maneuver to different things, to the different spaces that you need to be in. So, and that was where I was like, intuitively I would be pushed to different things, but I wasn't really checking in with them as a team. I wasn't listening to them. I wasn't, meditating and conversing with them at all. So now, because I have shifted that energy of the things that have happened to me in my life, and obviously, as I said, that was there was a lot that I had to move. And that's not the same for everyone. I think for me, I had to do a lot because I had to learn about how it works. I mean, if I'm going to help people, I need to know I need to know how it moves and how it looks and how I can help other people by understanding what I've had to go through myself. Um, so yeah, what was I saying? So shifting that energy made a huge difference for me to be able to then communicate and hear what the next steps were for working on me, for my healing process. So these are the reasons why. This is one reason why. There's actually many more reasons why, but one of the reasons why I look at putting all these things together, and what I mean by that is the physical, the spiritual, and the mental capacity of working on all of yourself as one whole being, not just, oh, I'm just going to work on my physical self. I'm going to, start going to the gym and I'm going to start eating differently. And, if you haven't done that for a while and you're starting off and it's all too hard, then we all know how that turns out. I mean, some people are very successful at it. It's like they just flick a switch and off they go. But then what happens is they're wondering why they don't feel better. They might feel better physically, like they might, have more energy and they love the fact that they look better or they have different clothes and all that kind of great stuff that goes with that transformation. And trust me, someone who has been, I was a gym operator. I worked with people on transformations for 5 years. That was my thing. So I completely love that part of what people do. But if they're missing the spiritual transformation, the energetic transformation, and the mental transformation, then we all know what happens. Generally, people go back to those old patterns because nothing has shifted. That engine light comes on and it starts to say, oh, so you think you're going really well now and you're going to go and do all these fabulous things because you've transformed. But we still have these old patterns that tell you that you need to stay really small, or you don't deserve to go out in the world like that, or whatever the thing is. And there's many, many things. And, a whole nother video would be on the ancestral stuff and the generational trauma that gets handed down from parents and grandparents and all those things. So that's a whole nother that's a whole nother load of baggage that we get that, because often I've had people say, oh, my upbringing was fantastic. I had the greatest parents in the world. Actually, not many people say that, but I have had a couple of people say that, which is fantastic, and I'm very happy for them. But then you can always, there'll always be something, whether it's from grandparents or whether it's from previous lives. That's generally a big one. And then whether you believe in previous lives or other things or not, there's always this energy that comes from a space of what you were taught, whether it's in school, whether it's from friends, whether it's from peers, society, that will be a programming that doesn't fit where you want to be and who you want to be. I hope some of this is making sense. Feel free to just say yes, no, hello. If you just joined since I started, please feel free to pop in the chat where you're from. I'm going to have a sip of water. Oh, that's better. Okay. So another another aspect I wanted to talk about. How are we going for time? Okay, good. Another aspect I wanted to talk about was this idea of how do we I guess mentally prepare for this idea of starting to do work on yourself or starting your healing process. So for me, I like to split it up into thirds. Now, you have, perhaps you are looking for something. I mean, everyone has a different first step or next step of where they're going. You might have been reading a lot already and you're obviously interested. I mean, you probably wouldn't be listening to me if you weren't. Um, so, so there's this 1/3 of you that 1/3 of the process of healing, sorry, that you may need to use someone else's services. You may need to, whether it's a shamanic practitioner, whether it's someone who does sound healing, whether it's someone who will help you with your spirit guides and connect, or someone who will help you meditate, whatever the thing is that you feel like you really need to work on now, and you find someone to help you do that. It doesn't have to be a healer or something, anything with some fancy name. As you can tell, I'm not great with titles because they mean so many different things. But what I'm saying is that it's someone who is, experienced in that first step for you that you go and access. Now that's perhaps 1/3 of it. It could even be psychedelics and medicine and all those kinds of things. I'll come back to the second part because that's going to be you. The third part is the resources. So it's things like, and it could be medication. It could be the resource part that you need to start doing. It could be the fact that you're changing your food, or that you're going to the gym, or that you're doing something differently. So it's an act and it's a resource that you're implementing, but it's a practice that you might do. It might be that you just start yoga or something. And like I said, it could be the first step for you might be medication. I'm not going to say that I'm a fan of long-term medicated things, but if it's the first step that you need to get you off the ledge, then by all means, because then it can help clarify where you're at, and then you can start moving into different spaces. That second pinnacle third, the second third, yeah, I hope you're with me there, is you. And I'm putting it in this kind of triangle in my mind, which is why I made the most, for me, the most important third is you and your responsibility and who it's your role in this. So why I frame it that way is because what happens is, and I've seen this in many, many psychedelic retreats and ceremonies and sessions, is that people come in going, okay, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to, take some mushrooms, or I'm going to do ayahuasca. And then you come home and you're like, okay, well, I don't feel any different. Or maybe you've had this amazing experience, but what happens a few months down the track, if you do nothing, is that you don't feel any different. And that those ideas of that amazing experience become something that you want to experience again. So you go back to the medicine again and you want to have another amazing experience, and then nothing sort of changes or does anything different. Same for, if you have a true shamanic practitioner who is going to help you with that energy and release that energy, you will release that energy, but you have to show up to help. You have to play your part in that. It's so vital, and it's one of the most important things that are actually missing in this complete shift of consciousness, where everyone is wanting to be activated and wanting to be released of their stuff. Because there's so many things available now that weren't available before. But the hardest part is sometimes to take ownership of what it is that you need to release, even if sometimes you don't know what that is. Even if it's just like, okay, I'm coming at this with the idea that I'm going to, find someone to help me to do the things that I can't do for myself yet. I'm going to do the things they've asked me to do. So you're actually doing the practice of those things. But if you're not mentally behind it, if you are there saying, well, I'm just doing this because this person told me I had to, then you're not making the change. Does that make sense? Is that kind of landing with you? I would love to hear if that is making sense to you, or if you want me to expand on that more. Because and I learned this the hard way, because this was me. This was me going, oh, okay, I felt like a bag of shit. I really did. I had no feeling at all. I was apathetic to the world. And I dragged my sorry bag of bones to a shamanic practitioner. who I had worked with before, but it had been a while and some further worse things had happened. So um, that was my first step, getting myself to someone who could see things that I clearly didn't have the ability to see. Um, he'd actually said to me that my spirit wasn't even a part of me anymore. Even my spirit didn't sign up for it. What that means is it's kind of like your essence. It's not your soul. It's kind of it's your essence. It's the part that's connected to source is kind of that says that was with me, but like outside of me going, yeah, I didn't sign up for this. This needs to change. There's no energy in here for me anymore. That's the state that I was in. So I had a lot of energy that needed to be released. Now, the very first time I went and did my first, he basically said to me, look, yeah, you're in strife. So we knew each other pretty well. He said, you could either go to therapy for probably 10, 20 years, which may or may not help you, but, or you can do ayahuasca, which will definitely start shifting some of the energy. And I had already started hearing about this was 10 years ago or so now, but I had already started looking into it, but I didn't have the kind of capacity to search it out. And at least it was local. I was able to do it. So the irony was though that I didn't show up for it. I was still just dragging myself around and going, who can help me? Who can help me with this? And yep, okay, here's the magic pill. This is going to make it all better. I did, it was 4 days, 3 nights. It's very intense. And I did do a lot of purging, a lot of shifting, a lot of crying, a lot of, all the stuff. And I'm not suggesting that everyone's first experience is like that. I had a lot to work on. But afterwards, I was like, oh, cool. I mean, I literally got home and celebrated with a bottle of wine and barbecue chicken wings. It's kind of a bit of a joke that I have now, but I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, how embarrassing. That at no point was there a concept in me that I was like, okay, well, I need to make some serious changes. I think I might have said it in kind of small talk. Okay, right now what happens? But I hadn't shown up as going, what part of this whole thing that I'm going through is my responsibility? What do I need to change? And to be honest, it was still way early days. Like I look back now and I just want to give myself a hug because I had no idea what I was in for. I had a long road of layers and layers and layers of things that I needed to look at and release lovingly. And I'm so grateful for all of it now because I'm able to recognize it so well in other people as well. But that's why, this healing activist that I am kind of calling myself today on this video is because I know that it probably feels really scary to start working on your stuff. And because there is no path. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know what it's going to bring up. You don't know this new version of yourself. You don't know what it's going to ask you to let go of. My entire life is completely different. And again, I'm not suggesting that that happens for everyone, but I'm really good with it. But everything has changed. There are so many things that I've let go of that I had to say goodbye to. Obviously, my career path is completely different. Many, many friends or people that absolutely do not understand this path that I'm walking and, probably think I'm crackers, which is totally okay. That's the thing. I'm okay with that. And I am very understanding of that. It's a very scary concept for some people to think that there's this whole version of our life that we could be, that we could have, that we could access. The idea of having a spirit team with you the whole way, that's hard for some people to comprehend. And also because we don't have that feeling of worthiness. We're so raised to think that we're just cogs in a wheel, that we're just running the rat race and that we're not worthy of anything important. How is it that every person on the entire planet has a team that are taking care of them and looking after them as best they can. And I know for some people out in the world at the moment, that's a struggle. But, if they are there for you to ask them to help. That's the other part that people sometimes misunderstand, is that, well, why aren't they stepping in and changing things? Because that's not how it's set up. We have to ask. That's the connection, right? We have to ask for help in those times when we're really struggling with, where do I go? What do I do? What choices do I make? What is the best lesson for me? And going in a direction that you feel like you're guided to go in, that doesn't always work out, still means that that's the space you were supposed to go in. Because for whatever reason it doesn't work out the way you think it was going to work out, that's actually still part of the lesson. Most of my best lessons that I've ever learned are from things not working out. Actually, probably all of them. Anyway, so that's a whole nother video on spirit guides, which I would be more than happy to do. I really think it's a huge piece for many people that aren't sure how they connect, what they're meant to hear for each, what their guides are there for. How do they do that process? So that's definitely something I'd be happy to help with. Anyway, sorry. So I got a bit off track, but I was just saying, looking at the time as I kind of wrap things up a little bit. And of course, if there are any questions at all, please pop them in the chat, or you can email me if they come up later, if it's easier to email. Because I know sometimes working on yourself can be something that you aren't sure how to word things, or you want to have them privately. So, email me for sure. I'd be glad to help. So what I wanted to wrap up with, so the third, did I finish that? Yeah. So just to re-summarize that, because I believe that's a really important part, as I said, that feels like it's really missing from what people understand about working on themselves, is your part of your responsibility. What are you willing to change, to do differently? And this is where the subconscious stuff and the patterns and the programming comes in. It's so important, because you need to really challenge yourself, and you may need help with that as well. But that's where that looking at, well, who was responsible? How did I get this programming into my head? Where did it come from? And then why? Like, what was it trying to save me from? What was the purpose of it? And very often it's other people's stuff. Like, I know most of the programming that was supposed to keep me safe, which was keeping me very small, was from my mum's own fears and my dad's fears and my stepdad's. They all had major traumatic upbringings. There was, narcissism, alcoholism, schizophrenia, like there was a whole mixed bag of stuff. And being raised in that vibration of fear and safety and, stay quiet because you need to stay quiet for safety, stay small for safety, then you think that because you're an adult now, that's okay. Like, oh, I can tell, but it's still there. That programming is still there. That's your inner child stuff. So you literally, by taking responsibility of what you need to do to change, that will help you learn how to reparent yourself. It will help you to understand why you do things the way you do, and if it's helpful, and if it's not helpful, then how you release that. So that's the difference it makes when you put your, I guess, that the third process of, yes, I need to acknowledge that I need someone else's help who is experienced in this, to work in the unseen world, to do whatever it is that they need to do to start helping you release that energy. Do the tasks that they said of me, or whether it's taking the medication, or, it might be whatever resources, it might be starting to read a book That might be your first step. And all of those things are okay. There's nothing too small. But what is your responsibility with that? What are you going to do differently about that? What are you going to take in? Even if it is reading a book, what are you going to do differently now that you've read that book? What are the pieces? What are the takeaways? And that's, I guess, the difference between just knowing something and then actually being it or doing it, becoming it. Yeah. So I'm really glad I got the opportunity to share that with you, because it's been the biggest change for me. Not all of the things that I had to impart into my life have been fun. And there have been lots of things that have been challenging that I've had to change. But they are so worth it on the other side. And like I said, I'm completely human. I still do things and that aren't helpful to my whether it's eating something I shouldn't have eaten, or not feeling like doing something physical that day. Still having days where I still feel the overwhelm come up, and I'm like, I can't do that. Doing this is a perfect example, because I was in a crazy funk when I came back I was in the Amazon jungle for 3 months, which some of you would probably know from being watching my videos. And it was the craziest funk that I could possibly. I thought things were going to be so much easier because I had done so much work. But it was all about, what are you going to actually impart? How are you going to change? Are you going to keep going back in this circle that I was in, or are you going to physically take this on as a path and do things differently? And that was a difficult decision until I'm in it. And now it's like not something that I could even think of doing differently. So yeah, I guess that's probably the best space to really wrap up. And I really hope that was helpful. Like I said, I'd love to hear from you. I wanted to offer, because I'm actually going back into the jungle in July. I'm taking some wonderful, gorgeous ladies with me, which is very exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. So that's in July. I'll be there for quite a few weeks. But in between now and then, I want to open up just a few spots for just I guess, a discovery call, whatever. It's only like a 20-minute catch up, but it's kind of like research for me. I'm not trying to sell you anything. There's nothing on the end of that. It's literally research to reach out and say, where are you at? What is healing look like for you? What does working on yourself look like for you? What might be your first steps? What might be your next steps? What might they look like? And that kind of helps me to know, what kind of content to help you with, what kind of, mentoring and things like that I can offer, how I can do that differently. But I'm going to offer a few spots. It'll be in the next email when I send the recording out, because I can't put it in the description here because it won't be available the whole time. So, if particular you're not on my list, go to charliegiles.com.au or just the .com. It doesn't matter. It's both. And get onto my newsletter there, because then you will get the recording and you will get the details for any calendar spots that might be available for the rest of this month. And totally free. Like I said, it's just a research chat, 20 minutes of your time. No obligation for anything. So just going to be offering a few of those, so to kind of be first in, we'll get them. And like I said, I guess the work that I do is really about helping people get unstuck with their energy, unstuck with their programming, and trying to move forward with a different way of doing things. I like helping people to look at where they're at differently. There's always a different perspective, but often we get so stuck in our head about what our story is, what our truth is. And then sometimes all you need is someone to give you a different perspective of how and why things are the way they seem, and then a way to view things differently, a different spotlight on things. And this can do massive shifts in your ability to take the next step of working on yourself. So yeah, that's what I like to do. And of course, obviously, I'm a psychedelic integration specialist. So if you are thinking of doing any journeys with psychedelic medicines, wherever you are, in different spaces, then, let me know, and I'm happy to either prepare you for that, help you with it, walk you through it. Certain medicines that I work with that I can do with you as well. So yeah, depending on where you are in the world. I would love to hear from you. I am looking forward to doing more of these, and I know I've said that before, but I think that part of my resistance has passed, and to keep you up to date with all things. So thank you so much. I've really enjoyed connecting with you. I know it's not the same as being in person or being face to face, but I really, really appreciate showing up. And all of the people who watch the recording, thank you. And feel free to message me and let me know what sat with you, what landed for you. Thank you so much. Oh, that's wonderful, Inops. Thank you. I really appreciate that it resonated with you. Have a wonderful rest of the day wherever you are in the world. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you again. Mwah. Thank you so much. Bye.